As WWE has evolved throughout the years, so too have their production values, most notably on their, wait for it, longest running weekly episodic TV show, Monday Night Raw. Never has that been truer than on the road to WrestleMania, and one feature in particular that WWE have developed over the years is that one final closing shot that we see on Monday Night Raw before the show of shows. Realizing it's their last chance to emphasize the importance of a storyline or the momentum of a performer or even the potential outcome of a match, WWE have conditioned their fans to hold a lot of stock in these closing moments on Monday Night Raw because you never know, it could be a clue as to the eventual payoff that's going to happen on Sunday. There's been an incredible 34 WrestleManias as of this recording, with the 35th about to happen this weekend, but not all of them were preceded by an episode of Monday Night Raw. Take WrestleMania 1, for example. That came after MTV's event War to Settle the Score, and WrestleManias 2 through to 8 all were preceded by an episode of either Superstars of Wrestling, Saturday Night's Main Event, or Primetime Wrestling, respectively. It wouldn't be until WrestleMania 9 when we finally get that very first go-home episode of Monday Night Raw before WrestleMania, which happened on the 22nd of March 1993. And since then, there have been 27 of those unique final moments to close out the show. However, it should also be noted that technically SmackDown became the official go-home show before WrestleMania as of WrestleMania 2000. But for now, we're just going to focus on those Raw moments, and we'll do the SmackDown ones in another video. So with that said, I'm Adam Nicholas, and this is every WWE Raw go-home WrestleMania shot ever. It will always be true that Macho Man Randy Savage was the first ever wrestler in WWE history to appear in the go-home shot on Raw before WrestleMania. Seen here on commentary with Vince McMahon and Rob Bartlett, Macho Man had been demoted to a commentary position when Vince was trying to force him to make way for the new generation of talent that was coming through, which apparently included Bob Backlund, a man 3 years his bloody senior. With Lex Luger set to take on Yokozuna at WrestleMania 10, Jim Cornette would be the closeout of the go-home Raw in '94, taking one last opportunity to cut a promo on Luger. Cornette hyped the upcoming WWF World Heavyweight Championship match between the two, while also promoting the pre-Mania matchup that was happening on March to WrestleMania 10 between Lex Luger and one half of the Heavenly Bodies, Jimmy the Gigolo Del Rey. Vince McMahon and Todd Pettengill talked Raw off the air after a plethora of promos from Lawrence Taylor, the $1 Million Team, and even a WrestleMania advert from then Home Improvement star Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Ooh, how delightful, as they all assured us that WrestleMania 11 was going to be awesome. Not exactly high drama, but we did get Bret and Owen Hart putting on a stellar no-holds-barred match earlier on the show. As WWF finally began to realize the untapped potential of the go-home shot, we closed out Raw 152 with, as Vince McMahon so succinctly put it, a special Slammy-nominated music video attesting to the celebrity of the Hitman, Bret Hart. Now, while it was mostly just a montage set to Jim Johnson's You Start the Fire, it did open with Bret Hart giving us his motivations before his big WrestleMania 12 match with Shawn Michaels, as he said he wanted to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt who was the best wrestler in the World Wrestling Federation. With the Hitman set to take on Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 13 and Psycho Sid set to defend his WWF Championship against The Undertaker, the stakes for this episode of Monday Night Raw couldn't have been any higher, as the winner of a steel cage match between Bret and Sid would get to decide the fate of the WWF Championship, meaning that their match at WrestleMania would include the coveted title. After The Undertaker cost Bret Hart the match, a mass brawl ensued and Raw would go off the air with Bret, Sid, Austin and Taker all beating the living crap out of each other. With a shot at the WWF Championship and his first ever WrestleMania main event just 6 days away, Stone Cold Steve Austin found himself between a rock and a hard place. The Rattlesnake managed to come out victorious in a one-on-one match against The Rock, but Shawn Michaels and DX would make their presence felt after the match, as the Heartbreak Kid told Austin he was going to turn his lights out for the last time at the Show of Shows. In one of the most iconic moments in Attitude Era history, this episode of Monday Night Raw would open with Stone Cold Steve Austin absolutely drowning the corporation, including The Rock, Vince McMahon and Shane McMahon, in a sea of Coors Light, much to the elation of the Albany, New York crowd in 1999. In the aftermath, Austin would defeat the Big Show in the main event of the night, having been put in that match as punishment for his antics earlier in the evening, but it would be The Rock who got the last laugh as the Great One attacked Austin after his match, delivering one emphatic rock bottom to the Rattlesnake and making that big statement before their massive WWF Championship match at WrestleMania 15. After The Rock and Vince McMahon won their tag team main event against Shane McMahon and The Big Show, which also featured Triple H and Mick Foley, both as special guest referees who said this storyline was convoluted, it would be the Great One who would be the closing shot of Raw on this occasion as he stood tall on the turnbuckle victorious before their match at WrestleMania 2000. With the infamous McMahon in every corner match just over the horizon, WWE's final message here was absolutely crystal clear. This was your future champion, and this was the man who was going to come out victorious at WrestleMania 2000. Or so they wanted you to think. Having teamed with Stone Cold in Raw's main event against the Brothers of Destruction, The Rock would strike first after their match as he not only put the Rattlesnake down, but put him down with his own finisher, a massive statement before their Mania 17 match. The show went off the air to the sight of the most electrifying man in sports entertainment, with his WWF Championship over his shoulder, his eyebrow raised, and looking over and staring back at a fallen Stone Cold Steve Austin. In a 2-on-3 handicap match against the NWO, The Rock and Austin would fall victim to the numbers game as the New World Order managed to pick up a huge victory against the two biggest stars of the Attitude Era. With Scott Hall taking on Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 18 and Hulk Hogan taking on The Rock in a clash of epic proportions, could they manage to repeat the feat by the time the show of shows rolled around on the Sunday? Despite having a solid run of at least 6 or so great go-home shots before WrestleMania, the sight of Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler talking Raw off the air in 2003 wasn't exactly inspiring. WWE had done a decent job of building WrestleMania 19 hype throughout the course of the night. They managed to promote matches like Hulk Hogan versus Vince McMahon. They managed to promote matches like The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. And they managed to promote matches like Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar. So the big question here is, why on earth did they not finish with one of those guys? There was a real chance to put an exclamation mark on all of this, and they just didn't do it. As The Rock and Mick Foley tried to rekindle the magic of their This Is Your Life segment from 1999, Evolution would crash the party at the end of this episode of Raw as they get the upper hand on their WrestleMania 20 opponents, while also foreshadowing the inevitable outcome of their 3-on-2 handicap match at the Show of Shows. With WrestleMania's tagline that year reading, "Where it all begins again," the promise of a new dawn was in the air, so it seems rather fitting that the go-home shot of the Raw before WrestleMania featured 2 of its future megastars. Now, if WrestleMania 20's tagline featured a spot of foreshadowing, then WrestleMania Goes to Hollywood the year after was damn near psychic, especially when you consider the trajectory that Dave Bautista's career would end up taking. For now though, the Animal will have to settle for his first ever WrestleMania main event against his former mentor and then World Heavyweight Champion, Triple H. After a typically eventful contract signing where police had to separate Batista and Triple H, the Animal would use this opportunity to taunt the champion one last time before their match at WrestleMania. And for anybody who's wondering, this is 6 days till WrestleMania, not England 5, Germany 1. Vince McMahon and Triple H had taken every advantage they could here after they'd just brutalised their respective WrestleMania 22 opponents, John Cena and a handcuffed Shawn Michaels, courtesy of a sledgehammer and a steel chair. And how about that for an image? The company's guys in the foreground, while the fan favourites lie in the background, bloodied and beaten. Sounds about right, doesn't it? Now before this, Shawn Michaels had just laid out his fellow tag team champion, Big Match John, with a sweet chain music, costing them the match in a non-title bout against Batista and The Undertaker. HBK's pursuit of another WWE Championship would see he and John Cena clash at WrestleMania 23, and after this, the showstopper had all the momentum on his side. Now in retrospect, there's something quite poignant about this image, to be honest, because whether we knew it then or not, this would be the last time we'd ever see Ric Flair woo on Monday Night Raw as an active wrestler. The Nature Boy's career-threatening match against Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 24 was just 6 days away, and while Slick Rick might have been ready to call time on his WWE career, one thing that nobody was ready for was that historic moment that came with it. I'm not crying, you're crying. As the Viper would spend the closing moments of Raw spouting venom about his upcoming title match with Triple H at WrestleMania 25, the game, with McMahon's Shane and Vince in tow, would turn up to silence the master of the RKO. Battling through a sea of security, which interestingly featured a young Keith Lee, Triple H, Vince McMahon and Shane took the fight to Orton and his legacy brethren as Raw would go off the air to the sight of Triple H and Randy Orton beating the holy crap out of each other in the middle of the ring. After a heel Batista had cruelly taken John Cena's newly won WWE Championship from him at Elimination Chamber 2010, safe to say, the face that runs the place was not a happy boy. Following a textbook brawl in the middle of the ring to close out the show, the camera zoomed in on a seething John Cena's face to capture that moment and prove that Big Match John was primed and ready to win his title back at WrestleMania 26. Alright, now technically, the very last shot of this episode was John Cena saluting at the top of the ramp, but this image probably illustrates the aftermath a little bit better. Despite The Miz being WWE Champion, the A-lister was somewhat of an afterthought in all of this, and the real story that was being told here was between John Cena and the WrestleMania 27 host, The Rock. In a final segment that was about 20 minutes of just pure talking, The Rock and John Cena took one last opportunity each to stake their claim before their WrestleMania main event. Now, whether you like it or not, there's simply no denying the fact that The Rock and John Cena are literally a license for WWE to print money, and having them close out the show on Monday Night Raw made perfect sense. After John Cena and The Rock had taken the main event and his WWE Championship before WrestleMania 29, CM Punk and then manager Paul Heyman wanted to do everything they possibly could to make his iconic match against The Undertaker feel like the most important match on the card. In the final shot of the Go Home Raw, Punk waded into questionable territory as he stood over a beaten down Taker, opened up the dead man's urn and poured on top of him the ashes of the recently deceased Paul Bearer. Cool. No doubt. Now, of all the go home shots that you'll see in this collection, this one is my personal favourite, not just because of how obviously great this moment was, but because of what it actually represented. Proof that the fans can actually make a difference, the leader of the Yes Movement seen here raising his arms defiantly in the face of the authority, as the power of the WWE Universe had literally willed him into the biggest match of his career at WrestleMania 30. If Daniel Bryan's was one of the most organic journeys to the main event we've ever seen, then Roman Reigns' was, well, quite frankly, the equal and opposite reaction that we've been expecting just 1 year later. Newton's third law, it seems, was in full effect. Off the mark, lacking in nuance, and fairly uninspiring, to be quite perfectly honest, Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar having a childlike tug of war over the WWE Championship was not the way to get fans hyped for WrestleMania 31. After the sheer elation of Daniel Bryan chanting yes to close out Monday Night Raw just 2 years earlier, this was a harsh reality check. Following convoluted booking and a plethora of injuries, WWE fans were left with Roman Reigns taking on Triple H for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 32 as their main event. With a predictable outcome, the inevitable crowning of Roman Reigns on the horizon, and the added factor that Daniel Bryan had just retired just a few months earlier, Roman Reigns was slowly but surely becoming a beacon for negativity, where fans openly and audibly rejected him. Bill Goldberg is the first man in WWE history to ever hold the Universal Championship in the closing moments of Monday Night Raw before WrestleMania. Yep. Back to face Brock Lesnar for WrestleMania 33, the pair were hoping to exercise the demons from their Mania 20 misfire. Now, since his return, Bill Goldberg had been presented as having Brock Lesnar's number, and as Raw would close the night out with a huge spear from Goldberg to Lesnar, it didn't seem like that was about to change anytime soon. 3 years after their WrestleMania 31 main event, Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar would finally meet again in a singles match, this time at WrestleMania 34 for the WWE Universal Championship. While fans expected this to result in the end of Brock Lesnar's ultimately damaging run with the Universal Championship, the show took one last opportunity to remind everybody just how dangerous the beast can be. After hitting Lesnar with a flurry of Superman punches, Reigns raised the title above his head, a sign of things to come. But Brock Lesnar would capitalise on a lapse in concentration from the big dog and put him down with one huge F5. And finally, that brings us to the Raw before WrestleMania 35. And yes, after 26 years of practice, the iconic go-home shot that was featured on the show was this lovely shot of the arena. And that was after Baron Corbin and Rey Mysterio main evented. What? 40 minutes before this, however, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey exploded after their 6-women tag match victory over the Riot Squad, where they brawled in the ring and then the police got involved. They all got handcuffed. It went to the backstage. They beat each other up. They beat police officers up. They smashed police cars up, smashed the windows. Ronda Rousey was bloody driving a police car at one point, handcuffed. Absolutely incredible stuff. Everything you want from the closing moments of Monday Night Raw before WrestleMania. Now, granted, I'm no expert in this field, but with the first ever women's main event event set to happen this Sunday at WrestleMania 35, and the announcement earlier in the night by Stephanie McMahon that the winner of that match will take home both the SmackDown Women's Championship and the Raw Women's Championship. Surely that is the focal point. Now, I have to say, on this image, there was a tiny graphic in the lower third a couple of seconds before that advertised the main event, so I guess to some extent they kind of closed with that, although this was the final image we saw without any graphic, which was really strange. But you tell me, what is the focal point to end the show on? An awesome women's segment where they're all beating the crap out of each other, or Rey Mysterio versus Baron Corbin? An awesome women's segment, Rey Mysterio versus Baron Corbin. You tell me. So there you have it, that is literally it. Every single go-home shot from Raw before WrestleMania of all time. Every single one of them, all in this video for you. Until next year, of course, where we have to do it all over again. But either way, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and share. Hit the old subscribe button if you haven't already. You can follow WhatCulture on Twitter at WhatCulture WWE. You can follow me on Twitter at It's Adam Nicholas. Or if you just want some more videos, there should be some just here somewhere. I'm Adam Nicholas, and I'll see you next time.